Welcome to the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast. Today, we're going to explore the challenges couples face and other practical solutions that will strengthen your marital bond. Guess what we're tackling today? Today, we're tackling a topic that has plagued marriages since the invention of money. Anybody have arguments over spending habits? I know for us, those were really back in that day when we first got married, when we brought our money together, his money, my money, how we would split up money, how we would split up the chores, how we would bring our lives together. And it takes a minute to kind of work those things out, doesn't it? Well, studies show that money issues are among the leading causes of the big D word, divorce. But today, I'm going to share with you some steps to minimize those conflicts and improve both your finances and your marriage and your communication. Because when you have better communication, your marriage is better and you discuss these things, right? Well, the first thing you want to do is learn to listen to each other. You want to listen to why you like to spend money this way or why it's so important to save money. You want to say, is this item we want to spend on, is it a want? Oh, yes, we all have lots of those. Or is it a need? Cable TV or streaming services like Hulu or YouTube or whatever, they're expensive. Cell phones are expensive. And so, how much do we need and how much of it is that we want things? And of course, the bigger the budget, the easier it is. But you know what? Often, the bigger the budget, the more amount that comes into your bank account, uh, people spend it more freely and easily. And to some people, that's really a challenge, wasting money or having to save all the money. You both got to learn how to give a little. You got to listen to each other, and you need to come to an agreement. Because if you don't talk about this, you will have challenges forever. And I would say communication and money are your top problems in marriage. Anybody agree with that? Well, the first thing we want to do is, we got to have a budget. Yeah, nobody likes the word budget. Well, that's not in my budget, or I don't have a budget for that. But a budget is really important because it is where you come together and you agree on how you will spend your money, how you will save your money. You agree on what's most important to each of you. And to be honest, if we don't sit down and talk about it, aren't we being a little self-centered or a little selfish? It's important that both spouses sit down and have some input in on how you're going to spend your money. So you need to agree on a budget. And here comes the next part because I don't really like the budget word either, but I had one for many, many moons. A spending plan. Doesn't that sound better than a budget? There was a girl in California, Michelle Tasco, I believe it is. That's where I heard that first, and I'm sure others have used it. But a spending plan. So instead of a budget, or I only have this much money, that lack of mentality where you don't have enough. Now, instead of I can't afford this, I have a spending plan. What's important to me? How will we spend our money? And this avoids a lot of arguments and fusses, and you kind of know what you expect, on how you will spend your money. And let's be real, you got to use real numbers. And that means, all the money that's coming in. Some people have child support from another marriage. Maybe you have a retirement from the military that you get every month. And then one spouse maybe makes more money than another, and the other one maybe makes a little bit of money and pitches that little bit of money in. I know for my husband and I, that's how it was. He worked full time and we pretty quickly started having children. So I was home with the children. Children, I had always taught dance at night. I taught ballet and jazz, usually about 3 nights a week. And so we kind of juggled all that, and then we put all our money together. So he has always been the main supporter of our family, but I always like to put a little something in. It makes me feel good. Now, if we go back to the 1950s homemaker, husband worked, woman stayed home with children, and I could get into a whole nother thing on that. Being a homemaker, it is just that. Sometimes it's a dirty word these days, but being a homemaker, you know, making dinner, taking care of the home, yeah, that's a whole nother subject. But you want to use real numbers. All the money that's coming in, and then you got to sit down and figure all the money that's going out. And that includes those extra things like insurance, life insurance, or car insurance that come up. Other payments that a lot of times your trash service is every 3 months. Whatever it is that you have every single month, how much for the groceries, how much for electricity and gas and anything else that you need. And then I always called it the miscellaneous money. So I had the money that I knew was going to be going out, and then I had the money of miscellaneous money. And I tell you, when we were younger, we didn't have very much miscellaneous money. That money for those extra little things. And so, we really had to be a little tight on that. But as I've said in other podcasts before, I was very pinchy. I mean, I held on tightly to money. My dad taught me how to spend money well, and I was pretty good at that. But when we hold too tightly to our money, we find ourselves holding so tightly, we become what's the word? Skinflint, a Scrooge. Everybody knows that movie. We become a Scrooge. And instead of doing that, you want to hold your hand. If you don't hold your hand open, nothing can come in. It's like good energy coming in. So learn not to hold your hand quite so tightly, but to be thoughtful and listening to your spouse, figuring out what you both need most. And so that's the first part. Importance of making a budget, agreeing on that budget, and agreeing on a spending plan. In episode 75, I have a girl, Sarah, who shares her newlywed challenges of bringing in a bunch of bills when you first getting married and losing your jobs, having a ton of debt and the overwhelm of that. And guess what? Like they're like 40-ish, and now she's traveling. She just went to the Antarctica. Wow, right? Wow. So the power of saving and the power of working together to pay those bills. So the second thing is transparency is key. Yeah, there's a lot of people who go shopping and then they tuck that stuff in their closet, hope their husband doesn't don't notice. And honestly, a lot of times men don't notice what you buy. Yeah. But my husband does. He always notices. So I like that he notices, but then, yeah, he notices. So you've got to be transparent on your spending. I mean, think of the arguments and the fusses that causes. I used to know someone that their husband bought a new truck, and then when he bought that truck, that's one thing. You got the car payment, you've got the insurance on it, and now he was adding rims, and he added fancy stuff on the inside, and he covered the bed of the truck and all the different extra things, and that was coming from their family income. You know, that would be miscellaneous income for the month. If you got a lot, then you can choose to do things like that or do them over a period of time. I would say back in 2008, whenever the bank started to falter, a lot of people had credit cards. And once those credit cards were up to like 21% interest, do you know how much that is when you're paying that much interest on credit cards? Well, people lost their houses and banks started to fold. And this right now is 2025. And the past 4 or 5 years, inflation, I mean, prices at the grocery store, if you were spending $400, then you were spending over $500, 520, 525 for the same things in just a few years. It's important, Budgets are important. So we have to have transparency on how we're spending, and we have to agree on what we really need and what it is that we want. We have to listen to each other. Got to be open. Got to be honest. Because if you're getting stuff and you're hiding it, there's an argument, and it's a big one. It gets hot, doesn't it? Gets loud sometimes. Number three, sharing goals creates unity. What do you really want? What's most important to you in your marriage? What do you want to spend money in? Is it going out to dinner all the time? Is it saving up for a vacation? Is it buying a house? Is it redecorating, doing a new kitchen? Do you see what I mean? Is it buying that new truck? We had a goal last year, and it was to buy a new camper. So we started researching new campers, used campers, and we brought that together in what we wanted in the camper. Why? Because we communicated about it. We talked about it a lot. We went and saw campers together. So being honest about our spending and having those, in common, sharing your goals, what's important to you. Because if it's important for your husband to drive a Lexus and it's important to you to have a house to live in, yeah, you got to talk about that. And sometimes when people rented a house, maybe their parents rented and they never owned a house, they don't even realize it's possible. Yes, if you get your money together, anything is possible. Talk to people who own houses. Find a way, make a way. Never assume you can't do. Even if you're making a little bit of money, don't assume things that you really want are out of your reach. But don't use credit cards. Don't use credit cards to do that. Set financial goals together. Make sure you're on the same page. Dream big. Dream big. Sit down and figure out what it is you really both want. Hey, and that goes back to some of my other podcasts as we're talking about the importance of spending time together and communicating and understanding one another and being open. The fourth thing is fairness in contributions. Now, this happens where one person, maybe they do pay for everything in the family, and maybe the other person's a big spender and they got to have the fancy Coach purses and the name brand shoes and the name brand jeans, and they only put fancy name brand everything in their house. Yeah. Understanding how you can spend better on your spending plan, how you can stay within that budget keeps the arguments down. But let's look at this. When one person is contributing all the money, do they get all the say? Well, some of this goes back to personality styles, where some people are controlling. Some people have to have that power of, I'll give you this much money. They have to have that power of saying everything. And actually, I would have to say that I'm not a person who looks for power, but because I was a penny pincher, it was very important to me to be able to pay my bills. And I think from fear of not having enough money, which, yeah, we only made so much and we started having a family early. Um, I was controlling, and my husband easily, because he's an easygoing personality, easily let me do that. But when you have two people who have that need to control the money for whatever reason is, you're going to butt heads, and you're going to butt heads a lot. So it's important to understand uh, that if you're bringing in all the money, that's not all that goes into running a household. So let's look at some things. When you're looking at this, who pays what? Are you going to have a partnership of 50-50? And who pays what? Well, let me go into these things. When we're looking at fairness and contributions, one person doing all the at going to work, bringing in all the money. Let's look at these things. Consider childcare, the cost of childcare. Consider who's going to be cooking and shopping. Those things take time, and budgeting and figuring out menus. Figure out who does the laundry, or you're going to go and pay and have somebody else do it. Who, if you have kids and teenagers, uh, who's the taxi service? Yeah, picking up kids from school or taking them to school or taking them to football or taking them to piano lessons. Yeah, Those are all things that go inside of your marriage. Who's doing the lawn? Who's responsible to paint the house and do the repairs outside? Uh, who is responsible for painting inside? I don't mind painting with my husband. That helps us spend time together. We turn on some great music and we paint together. We own rental property, and so when we've had to redo and clean those up, we go in and paint and do that together. And there goes my penny pension because I don't want to pay someone else to do it. So I go in and help do it, right? There's part of my reason is right there. But you have to learn how to divide those household chores and repairs and upkeep. And everyone wants to feel valuable. Yeah. If there's a person in the house and they're doing all that, it gets overwhelming too. And yeah, when you're at work, you get overwhelmed also. But not appreciating one another and having fairness in contributions causes resentment. Yeah, that's pretty stinky. When you start to resent somebody and then that grows and grows and grows, they start seeing everything they don't like about their marriage. So, fairness and contributions. Very important to talk about that. Number five, healthy disagreements. Some people talk calmly, easily. They listen to one another. They affirm one another. They say what they don't like about something, and then they discuss it quietly and calmly. Some people get heated up. They get heated up is just who they are. I said, if you're getting heated up, count to 10 before you say another word. Because that's when we say something that's not nice that gets the other person heated up. So we want to learn to have healthy disagreements. And your words matter. Don't say something sarcastic or don't be a turtle and tuck your head in and not share and just not talk when the other person's yelling at you. Yeah, I don't like to be yelled at either. Healthy disagreements. This nurtures your marriage. Well, fairness, understanding your differences is really important in how that you can be fair and thoughtful, affirming your spouse, showing them that you're listening, showing them you care. And why do we have such differences? Because we were raised saving all our money. We were raised spending and buying. I deserve to have whatever I want. Yeah, that's a problem. That causes a lot of problems. So, do you find yourself butting heads, or does one person always give in with little resistance? These patterns can create distance in your relationship. To grow closer and foster understanding, consider taking the on demand Rediscover Your Spouse workshop. This workshop will help you tap into new ways to communicate, empathize with your spouse, and lean in to your spouse, enhancing your connection and reducing conflict. And I'll have the link in the notes for that. You do not realize what is causing trouble until suddenly one day you're like, oh, we think opposite. We see things oppositely. Why is that? And that's the kind of thing you learn in Rediscover Your Spouse. You learn a lot about yourself and you learn about your spouse. And I really keep the cost down for that. It's worth so much more. I can't wait to hear from you once you go through that workshop. Minimizing money regulated, excuse me, minimizing money related arguments is a great way to strengthen your marriage. It's also a great way to get your finances under control. Many of the steps involved will encourage healthy finances. Protect your marriage and do what's necessary to eliminate money arguments. Thanks for tuning in to The Extraordinary Marriage, and don't forget to subscribe and review. Thank you. I'm Connie Durham. Visit me at theextraordinarymarriage.com.